Assalamu alaikum, peace be with you, and Ramadan Mubarak. Almost getting to Eid Mubarak. I'm your brother in faith, Shabir Ally, speaking to you from the Muslim Media Hub. And today I bring you episode number 27 of the 30 keys to unlock the meaning of the Quran. So our 27th key is understanding how the various modes of reciting the Quran expand the meaning of the Quran. Previously, we talked about 10 different readings of the Quran. So those are 10 different readings of what we call the skeletal text in the Arabic. We all are familiar with the expression dotting your I's and crossing your T's when we're dealing with the English language. We're doing handwriting in the English language, then we might write the whole word and then we go back to dot the I's and cross the T's. Now, Arabic is written in this direction, and in a similar way, we have letters that have dots, not just only like one letter as in the English alphabet. Several letters have dots, and so rather than write, stop, put your dots, and then put your pen exactly where you stopped last time to continue the writing. Writers would write the whole word and then they will go back to dot the letters. Now, of course, if one wants to save time and if what one is writing is very clear from, as it is, one may not even bother to dot the letters. And this was the case in, the earlier times, and especially with writing the Quran. And then later times, people tended to be more particular about writing the dots. Writing the dots now has been seen to be an ancient practice. Even some archaeological finds have shown that even prior to the Quran being revealed to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, people were using dots to disambiguate some of the Arabic letters. One dot above, one dot below, two dots above, three dots above, and so on would distinguish the various letters from each other. Some other letters have some unique shape, in which case there is no need for the dotting to distinguish them. So in the earlier phase of the Quranic records, we find that the tendency was not to put a lot of dots, and then later on the tendency was to complete it with all of the dots so that everything is very clear and there is no worry about is it this letter or the other letter. The various ways of reading the Quran, the 10 ways that we talked about previously, these are 10 ways of reading the same consonantal doctus. It may be that the dots are placed slightly differently, and it may be that the short vowels, which were generally not written in as well, might be read differently. One might read an A vowel, where another reader might read an I vowel, as we saw in one case, arjulakum and arjulikum, when we're talking about washing or wiping the feet. So now we come to those that we have looked at we can call minor variations. Now, there is also recorded in Islamic history instances of persons who were close to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, the earliest generation of Muslims, who read the Quran in some cases in ways which we would classify as a major variation as compared with the minor ones which we have seen previously. And these major variations are called ahruf. However, we should clarify from the start that these various ahruf, these modes of recitation is what we will call them for simplicity in English, they do not, again, neither do these affect the beliefs of Muslims or the practices of Muslims in any significant way. So let's look at some examples so you get a sense of what we have in mind when we speak of this level of variation. So it is reported that Aisha, the mother of the believers, instructed the scribe who was writing for her that when the scribe was writing the Quran, there is a verse in the Quran in the second chapter which says, "Hafidhu ala salawati wa salatil wusta." Take care of your prayers and especially the middle prayer. So people might have read that and wondered, like, what is the middle prayer? Now, Aisha was instructing her scribe to write "Wahiya salatil asr," and it is the Asr prayer. Asr prayer is the third prayer in the day if we go from morning till evening. So this is the late afternoon prayer. It's called the Asr prayer. Her instruction to the scribe, if this is authentic, again, I say if it's authentic because we have all of these reports about somebody reading it this way, somebody instructing a scribe this way, and so on. All of these are reports that were said later, like somebody recorded this report much later, not directly from Aisha radiallahu anha. So we cannot vouch for its authenticity. We can only say this is a report early on, and how do we take this? We cannot take it as being a part of the Quran, because for it to be part of the Quran, it must have been by consensus of the companions of the Prophet, peace be upon him, the people who lived and walked with him. It's not based on the testimony of one person, even an important person such as Aisha, the mother of the believers. It could be that this was her interpretation of the Quran. So in other words, when people are asking which prayer is the middle prayer, like of course, if we start from morning, we go till evening, then it seems to be a no-brainer. Yeah, the late afternoon prayer is the third, and so it's the middle of five. But if somebody starts with Maghrib being the night prayer, and thinking that the day starts with Maghrib, the sunset prayer being the first one, the late night prayer being the second one, lo and behold, the morning prayer will be the third one, and that would be the middle prayer. So opinions vary depending on where people take as the starting point. And so Aisha's take on this was that it is the Asr prayer. And so she wanted to have that written into the script. Today, we would write things as a footnote or as a marginal note, a side comment. But in those days, when people wrote on primitive writing materials, the distinction was not made at that time that, okay, this is really footnoting material, so it should go on a footnote. There's no space that would be called a footnoting space or a marginal comment space. They wrote their commentary within the text itself. In a similar way, we can look at the 33rd chapter of the Quran, which is called Surah Al-Ahzab. النبي أولى بالمؤمنين من أنفسهم وأزواجه أمهاتهم. The messenger is closer to the believers than themselves, and his wives are as their mothers, meaning the mothers of the believers. You recall I just referred to Aisha as the mother of the believers. That's the concept, like a spiritual mother to us. And it is mentioned that Obai bin Ka'b, one of the early reciters of the Quran, close to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, instructed directly from the Prophet, peace be upon him, it is mentioned that he used to read at this point, وَهُوَ أَبٌ لَهُمْ, and he is a father to them. So that thought seems to follow naturally from saying that the messenger is closer to the believers than they are to themselves, or they are to each other, and his wives are as mothers to the believers. Then it follows as a closely related thought that the Prophet, peace be upon him, himself is a father to the believers. That meaning that follows so closely, is that really in the text of the Quran, or is that the comment from this one companion? Again, because it comes from this one companion, we cannot say that this is unanimously agreed to be part of the Quran, and we are not going to take the materials for the Quran to be just what comes from one person's testimony. We want the collective testimony of the companions of the Prophet, peace be upon him. We want that Quran which was prepared by the Caliph Uthman, God be pleased with him, in a public way, with a committee commissioned by him of persons who were reliable, who were known to be good scribes, who could go around, collect all of the written pieces that were written down from the time of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and have those verified, checked, and then included as part of the Quran by public acclaim, not by the testimony of one individual. So we have one individual here saying that it should read like this, وَهُوَ أَبٌ لَهُمْ, but that could be his interpretation and a kind of a marginal note. But you can see how in both cases that we've looked at so far, the meaning is expounded and clarified for us. So if one was wondering which is the middle prayer, we have it from no less an authority than Aisha, the mother of the believers, that this is the Asr or the afternoon prayer. If we are wondering about the relationship of the Prophet, peace be upon him, to the believers, here we have Ubayy bin Ka'b telling us that the Prophet, peace be upon him, was like a father to us. And there are other narratives which bear out the idea that the Prophet, peace be upon him, is a father to us without referring to any verse of the Quran in particular. For example, there is a narrative in which Abu Hurairah says that the Prophet, peace be upon him, taught us so many things as the father would teach his children. So the Prophet, peace be upon him, truly is a father to the believers, and the prophets in general are said in hadith to be fathers of their communities. So there's nothing strange about that. It doesn't change anything that Muslims believe. It's not like we are saying, okay, the Father is God, but that would be contrary to Muslim proclamations. But saying the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is like a father to the believers doesn't change anything. So it's not like we have a contest here between, it looks like there's one Quran Quran here and there's another Quran here, and one is commanding Muslims to believe this way and the other is commanding Muslims to believe the other way. No. Muslims, regardless whether they read it like Obai bin Ka'b or as we read now in our printed texts of the Quran, without the phrase وَهُوَ أَبُو لَهُمْ, we all have the same belief. We all recognize the Prophet, peace be upon him, as a father figure to us, as very important to us, and we have no qualms about that. It's just that it is mentioned offhand that Obai bin Ka'b read it this way. Whether he read it that way or not, that needs to be verified, and because that happened so long ago, it's hard to verify now, and it could have been just his interpretation. But having it there expands the meaning. Now, for the average Muslim, you might say, okay, we don't need to go into all of this. But when you start reading the commentaries on the Quran, the classical commentaries, you will come across all of this information. Moreover, you will come across this information by some who are either academics or some who are hostile to the Muslim faith, and so they want to sow some doubt and discord. Arthur Jeffrey prepared a book entitled Materials for the History of the Quran. Much of what he has compiled therein is information that he has gathered from the classical Muslim sources, example commentaries on the Quran, and books that give us listings of all of these various ways in which it is reported that early Muslims recited the Quran, such as, for example, inserting Wahiyya Salatul Asr, as Aisha is reportedly to have done, and as Ubayy bin Ka'b reportedly read, وَهُوَ أَبُو لَهُمْ, and he is a father to them. Arthur Jeffrey compiled all of this information from Muslim sources, which were well accepted, but doesn't cause any consternation among Muslim scholars. They all know this, and they all repeat this, and they write about this in their classical commentaries and so on. But someone can take this bit of information and then throw it to the average Muslim and cause some doubt and confusion in the minds of the average Muslim, especially since Muslim scholars have tended to just simply speak simplistically to the Muslim populace about the history of the Quran and how it came to be written and how it came to be compiled and so on. So the average Muslim may get the idea that every Quran out there must be the same, and to their surprise, it is not the case. No, as we have seen in our previous key, there are 10 different acceptable ways of reciting the Quran, and these ways may have different vowel pointing and to disambiguate letters. And now we come to a higher level of complexity, where we're dealing with even what might be viewed from the point of view of the standard text to be insertions, as in the case of Wahiyya Salatul Asr, and it is the Asr prayer, or وَهُوَ أَبُو لَهُمْ. Now, there are other examples as well which can be cited, but I think the point is already well made that there are such readings which have been attributed to early Muslims. Sometimes it has to do with the substitution of a word, but with the same meaning. Sometimes a word is given in the plural. So, for example, in the 23rd chapter of the Quran, there is a description of the believers. One of the descriptions is that they take care of their amanat, their trusts. And somebody apparently read that in the singular, amanat, which has a shorter vowel, but that's not in the standard reading. So whether one reads it with, trusts in plural or trust in singular, one can conceptualize this as being really a reference to the same thing, because we can either think of the trust that one is entrusted with as being in the plural, meaning that they're individual itemized items within the larger body of entrusted things, or you can think about it as one concept that somebody has entrusted you. This is your trust, which could be a collection of many smaller things. These readings do not change in any way the belief of Muslims, and they do not impact the practices of Muslims in any significant way. Interestingly, for those who want to study this a little bit further, there has been a discovered manuscript in San'aa in Yemen. This is referred to as the San'aa Palimpsest, and an edition of this has been published by Shabir Ally in a book entitled the San'aa Palimpsest, which is available in English, but of course the palimpsest itself is in Arabic, and the transcribed words from the Arabic palimpsest is there also in Arabic, but a translation is given and some commentary and notes and introduction to help you to come to grips with that. That palimpsest cannot be verified today to be authentically from the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, or from his companions, but it can be said to be very old, and it gives evidence that what we have reported about the various companions reading like this or that, or with a substituted word, or sometimes a different word order with basically the same meaning. That is shown as an example here in the San'aa Palimpsest. This seems to be an example of a copy of the Quran in which such variations are found, which we would clarify as the kinds of variations that are found in the 7 modes of recitation, which are referred to, there are 7 modes of reading, which are referred to in the Arabic as sab'atu ahruf. It is mentioned in the hadith that the Prophet, peace be upon him, said that the Quran has been revealed to him in 7 ahruf, kullun, shafin, kaf. Each one of them is good for healing, which the Quran is for believers, healing the hearts and spiritual cure for the believers. And it is kaf. That means it is complete. So each one by itself is a complete rendition of that message which God has given to the angel Gabriel to deliver to the Prophet, peace be upon him, for the benefit of all humankind. So either one is fine. None of these are conflicting, and they are all good for expanding and explicating and clarifying the meaning of the Quranic text. When we read the commentaries, we'll come upon all of this. The average Muslim does not necessarily want to be going into all of these details, but if you want to take it to the next level, this is a key to unlock the meaning of the Quran. That is, understanding how the 7 modes of reading the Quran impact the meaning. Join me again tomorrow, in which we will now, as we are winding down, look at the use of topical arrangements of the Quran. As I'm signing off, I beg you during these last days and nights of Ramadan to pray for me personally, to pray for our mission, pray for the Muslim Media Hub, pray for the message of Allah to be broadcast to the entire world, pray for the entire Ummah, pray for the world, and pray especially for the people of Gaza. Peace be with you and the mercy of Allah. I'm your brother in faith, Shabir Ally, speaking to you from the Muslim Media Hub and saying Eid Mubarak in advance. This Ramadan, we're making history together. Behind me is the building you helped us purchase for the sake of Allah for the establishment of the Muslim Media Hub. We've started filming our television program here called Let the Quran Speak, and we're training the youth to produce other such shows and videos for social media so that we can present the message of Islam to the wider world. This Ramadan, you can help us to raise $100,000 for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal. Please go to our website, muslimmediahub.com. May Allah bless you and all of your loved ones this Ramadan and forever. I'm your brother in faith, Shabir Ally, saying Assalamu alaikum, peace be with you, and Ramadan Mubarak.